Saturday, December 2nd, 7:01 p.m. Bad Podcast. I'm Drew.
I'm Brett. Welcome, episode 10, guys. Colin Loftus. This one is overdue.
Oh, I'm so excited, guys.
Here we go.
Thank you for joining us. So, what do you want to talk about?
Oh, geez,
What do we got?
What do we got?
What's a product?
I don't know. What are we talking about? What's new? What's
Aliens.
Aliens. They're fucking real, dude. If you disagree,
Dude, there's no way they're not. Like, we're just the only rock in all of this vast, infinite space that has some sort of life. I think if they're dumber than us, then we probably would have enslaved them. And if they're smarter than us, then they're like, nah, fuck, we're not talking to them.
Isn't that a scary thought that we could be the most evolved thing in the entire universe?
I so don't buy it, dude. Like, I so don't buy it. You saw those videos we watched earlier. There's no way.
Oh, the video is the guy farting on his dog.
Like, unbelievable. Like, that is...
What's
this
his
is
name?
The pinnacle of
Professional
human
ass
technology.
ripper?
Like, we developed the internet. Just we can send pictures, photos, videos, whatever, to like somebody in Malaysia, somebody in China, and we choose to record ourselves farting on dogs.
Dude, because we're just dumb apes still. We're not ready.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That'd be a lucky draw, though, if we are the most intelligent, most intellectually evolved creatures. That would be a lucky draw of us.
Right? The one in a million.
True.
That's a
If
pretty
that's
lucky
true,
draw
man,
that we're like even able to just like exist.
Consider
like, we're just
that
a bunch
question?
Well, yeah, if we're a bunch of molecules that just decided to like to be able to go to college and make all these decisions. Like aren't you like 30% or 40% microbial like beings, like bacterial life in your stomach and stuff like that.
And that's not really you.
No, exactly. So many and like. Where do you break it down to, like, what is you? Because, like, yes, one solitary skin cell is a part of you, but that's not you. But then, what is you? I guess the consciousness is, like, where you would arrive at, but...
Have you ever heard that Plato thing Plato wrote where you take a ship and you tear one board off at a time and replace it with new boards, and he asks, when is a new ship?
No, I haven't heard that, but that's actually a really funny, like... Because it's on the surface, it's like just an easy philosophical question. Like, all right, so when does it become a new but I have no idea. I genuinely have no idea.
The first board? Is it the last board? Is it
steering
50% of the board?
I think it's a steering wheel.
New ship.
And different.
I guess if you held a gun to my head, I'd say like 51% new ship, When you're 51% rebuilt, that's a majority, I guess, but I don't really, that doesn't sit well with me necessarily.
Dude, what do you think about that you guys know that crosswalk thing where it's like there's three people on one side of the tracks and there's one person on the other side of the tracks, and you're standing there and you have the railroad operator, and the train is the train is going towards the one person, and
one person versus three strangers.
Exactly. Right? Yeah, and you have the opportunity to change it to kill the three instead of the one. Is that how it goes, or is it the other way around?
That's generally how it goes. I think there's a lot of different twists on it, so it's tough to, I don't know what the original moral quandary was, but I actually, we had a philosophy club in my high school, and we always did moral quandaries at the end, and it was so fun. And we did that one a couple different times with, different variants of, it's your grandma versus three congressmen, or it's, your father versus three of the players on your favorite football team, whatever. But yeah, moral quandaries are really, really, really fun. Just because it gives you a greater indication, I think, of who those people are. People can unveil things about themselves without even really intending to, just answering a simple question. I think it's really fascinating. And those are usually the easiest, because it's what would you do in this life or death situation? And how people think they're going to react is really indicative of who they think they are and how they think they are.
Yeah, it's important that you said who they think they are.
Yeah.
Because just because that's what they think that's how they're going to act, that doesn't necessarily mean...
You have no idea.
Absolutely.
Until you get into the situation, you can prepare all you want. I could be going to CPR and EMT classes right now, and if I faint when I see blood, all of that's for naught. You have no idea until you're in it. It's really interesting.
Absolutely.
Dude, those people who faint when they see blood are kind of crazy. That's
kind of evolutionary.
Yeah.
What happened there?
It's oh, I'm done.
It's over.
Those are the possum people. There's a small
Play
sect
dead,
of the human population.
Do you guys think that, totally new topic, but do you guys think that bears and sharks and all these apex predators are wired to kill humans, or do you think that it's accident.
I think we self-aggrandize for, like, we're afraid of them because they can kill us, and we're not used to things being able to kill us, so we're like, oh my god, that shark can kill us, so all it does is kill humans. And it's like, no, like, 98% of that shark's life is just, like, swimming around, like, swim, 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 prey, bite, swim, 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 swim. Like, it does not perceive. I think, actually, living on the Cape, we have to deal with sharks a little bit more, so, like, we're a little bit more informed. Like, I have to read about them in the newspaper and stuff like that. Like, you saw
the news loves it, dude.
Oh, they like thrive on it, even though it kills the tourist industry. It's really fun.
Very
actually.
true.
But they perceive us as, I think, like crippled seals or something. Like, if you're on a surfboard and they see the flailing legs, they perceive you as a crippled seal, and they're like, oh, sweet, easy meal. Like, that's fast food for a shark.
Dude, did you see the Nauset where the shark attacked the seal? But it was right next to two surfers, and it still attacked the seal, which is interesting to me.
Well, I guess human tastes kind of gross to sharks. That's my understanding, at least. I don't want to misrepresent. I'm not a shark scientist.
Or a shark.
Yeah. Can you, like, when we edit this, can you give me the shark scientist?
We got it. Shark scientist. Shark test.
Bad
shark
podcast,
test.
Shark Week.
Yeah, we can print out a certificate.
All right, I like
That'd be
that.
perfect.
Rodrigo signing off on it.
Senor Rodrigo.
No, that's definitely an interesting question, though, because, like, I think it's so tough to answer because our perspective is so hard to, like, rip yourself out of. Like, it's hard to not be a human and be like, I don't know what do bears do most of the time. Because for us, it's like, oh, we're camping in our tent and bears come and attack us or want to eat our marshmallows or whatever.
Think about that a lot. Like, when Chris and I had the bear come into the camp, we made it very known that we were there to the bear, and it chose to run away. Because we scared it, but
that's what you're
it could have
to
turned
do, right?
the other way.
You're supposed to, like, pronounce yourself as a large force. Like, you're supposed to raise your arms above your head and growl. And I probably wouldn't. Like, again, we were saying, like, we don't know how we'd act in those situations. I might do that, but I wouldn't anticipate myself being able to be a bear against a bear.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you guys had the benefit of being a little bit secluded from the bear. Like, if it was, like, you were on the ground and the bear was just walked in through the bushes 4 feet away, then it might be a different,
Dude, the situation just got real so quick in that there was no running. I'm like, I can't get away from a bear. What am I going to climb a tree?
There's no negotiation there.
Stand and fight.
It's like when I went down to Florida and they have crocodiles and they're amazingly casual about having crocodiles. Like, they have these giant, like, prehistoric era lizards
that is a dinosaur, dude.
Yeah, it is literally a dinosaur, and they're just like, oh yeah, those live in the swamps, don't let your cats outside. Like, it's just part of living in Florida.
Yeah, keep
that's
your kids
mind-boggling. Like, yeah, some kid got chomped at Disney World like a year or two ago. We probably shouldn't say that because, like, Disney sues everybody, but
they do that.
hunt us down,
Get us for everything we're worth, which is not much.
Royalties, yeah.
Dude, now that I think about it, though, sharks are a lower form of life than lizards, though, right?
I don't know. How are you defining, like, forms of life? What's your hierarchy?
Oh, yeah, I just figured that it had to climb out of the sea. And the sharks just kind of stayed there, but I didn't think of the fact that
Maybe you want to live in, because whales have been around forever, and whales were just like, nah, fuck you, I'm staying in the ocean.
Or like an octopus.
No, do you know what I heard? That mammals came out of the ocean and then formed the backbone and the hands and everything, and then the mammals that exist in the sea went back.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why they have the animal.
Shit just,
yeah, dude.
No.
It had to come out to become a mammal and then returned.
Wow. That's
really,
crazy.
really crazy.
I heard that, and this is kind of different, but when Paul Stamets was talking about how humans share more of a common ancestor with fungi than any other of the kingdoms, pretty insane to think of. Just like our cell functions and everything. I wish I could recall more of the information, but you wouldn't even think that to be remotely true.
He's a data king. Like, you can't keep up with his data. It's
No,
like, there was a
not at
study
all.
done in 2014 where, like...
I love those people. Those people that are just so empirically sound. Like, that's honestly what I strive for. But it's kind of a double-edged sword because, you know, like you can make stats say anything is like one of the oldest adages, but it's so true. Like, you could misrepresent whatever you wanted. But when people are quoting just bare scientific studies saying this is the information, that's not really manipulating. I think that's a different story, you know.
Dude, the scientific attitude is so... It's a miracle that ever came about.
Yeah, like scientific theory especially.
I try to bring the tribal mindset back a little bit. Like, I was talking about how when I go in the woods, I say to the woods, I'm like, if there's any wood spirits out here or some sort of nature god out there.
Pygmies.
Yeah, like, I'm just a dumb white man. I don't know the customs of this area that have evolved. Like, please forgive me.
Do you think that tribalism is, like, outdated in today's world? Like, we're so surrounded by this society. Do you think we still need a tribalistic mindset? Like, you clearly seek it out, so it's just interesting.
I just think that it's integral to a part of being human. And I think it's a some loss to totally forsake it.
No, I totally agree. I think we're inherently tribalistic. I just think some of it originates in lower parts of our brain. I think like the most recently evolved parts of our brain that make us human and like conscious are less tribalistic, or at least have the codes to be overriding that tribalistic thought. So it's interesting. I guess it was probably like the ideal is a balance between the two, but
yeah, it clicks in more to the emotional facilities instead of the logic. Like it's a feeling.
That like feeling of group inclusion, and it's a necessary feeling, because without it you'd go crazy.
Oh,
exactly.
Like, have you ever talked to somebody that's just so rigidly logical in every aspect of their lives? It's horrifying. It's horrifying. How do you live like that 24/7? Like, I consider myself a pretty logical person, but like obviously you need to allow space for emotions, for feelings. Like when people just try and iron that out like they're an organic robot, it's so horrifying.
Meat computer, if you will.
You are a robot.
Computer. That's another good band name. If I was like, if we started a punk
Meat
band
Computer.
tomorrow, it's Meat Computer.
I think so. I think that's it. Can we just change the name of the podcast?
Meat Computer.
Meat Computer.
Yeah, let's do it.
Episode 10, we become the Meat Computer.
Podcast Meat Computer, episode 1. Starting here.
Yeah, the grossest part would be that you're required to say Meat Computer at least once an episode. That's gonna
You get pretty old.
What do you think about the current administration, man? I hate to turn it. I hate to turn it political, but
I honestly, so you know that I'm supremely left-leaning in my thought generally. I think there needs to be a balance, but I think there's like no semblance of balance in today's world. Sorry, one second. It's honestly difficult for me to speak on the administration right now, for a multitude of reasons. I try to stay informed, but honestly, I believe in today's world, it's truly difficult to stay informed on like just the facts without any spin. So my parents watch MSNBC, and that's obviously way less biased than Fox News, not to name names. But it's still incredibly biased. Like you watch it and you're like, wow, they are taking this information, they're trying to sell it a certain way. So I've become sort of disillusioned with politics, honestly. It's been a journey for me because I'm a political science major. I was a social work major for a bit. I'm going back to the political science major, but it's been truly like eye-opening because I really wanted to work in international affairs. That was my dream. I did Model UN in high school. It was something I really enjoyed. And just like you can solve a lot of global social issues, that's really appealing to me. But then I saw Trump install South Carolina, I think former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, or she might have been a senator. I apologize, I don't know off the top of my head. But she is very much a mouthpiece of the administration in the UN, and that's just kind of disappointing. I know that's partially what an ambassador is supposed to do, but you see previously prestigious positions, alliteration, which are melting down into and Obama was guilty of this too. Yeah, I don't want to say that Trump ruined everything because it's been a constant devolution since I think if I had to circle a spot and say like this was it, it would be the late 80s with Reagan and the early 90s with Gingrich. Newt Gingrich was Speaker of the House in the House of Representatives and decided on obstructionism as a method of getting legislation they didn't like off the floor. So it was a Democratic majority. They figured out they had just enough votes to cut down legislation they didn't like, and they were just obstructionist on anything that was liberal policy. And we've seen how that's evolved into today's like, I don't want to scratch your back, you won't scratch mine, we'll get nothing done. So it's been a really dynamic shift in American politics in the last 30 years. And then obviously the advent of technology and social media, there's so much going on. So it's tough to just to comment on one specific aspect of it, I guess. And there's so much going on internationally that we're ignoring right now because we're so entrenched. We have something going on here that we need to focus on. So there are, Muslims in Malaysia right now who are having to leave for India and Burma, or not Burma, I apologize, for other places, and they are Myanmar, not Malaysia. I really apologize. Oof. Rohingya Muslims, and they are a minority population. And actually, the president of their country won the Nobel Peace Prize just a few years ago for helping negotiate the peace between the Rohingya and the majority population in the country. And I think early estimates are that 500,000 people have lost their lives and 500,000 people have migrated. Like, that's like, it's the Stalin quote, and I hate to quote Stalin talking about genocide, but like the one person's life lost is a tragedy and 1 million is a statistic. Like 500,000 is just a totally inconceivable number, and I think that's when us, especially, I don't know if it's especially an American thing, but my perspective is being an American, I think we get so overwhelmed by that number that we don't think about it. Like, we just cannot conceive of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a brief spat.
So fuck politics nowadays.
Not fuck politics. I think they're so important, but I think, fuck money in politics, first off. Fuck money in politics.
Number one problem.
Yeah, like, forever and ever and ever, fuck money in politics. And it's rooted in good things. Like, even fuck money in politics sounds controversial, but it started out because there were nonprofits lobbying to get certain, say you're a sight loss nonprofit and you help people who are blind, and they're saying the current qualifications for being blind to the government is 100 to 10 vision, and I have 65 to 10 vision, but I can't drive and it's not corrective. Could you lobby to the government and ask that they amend this so that I could be included? And if enough people came forward, you would make that motion. Like, it started in a good place, and then corporations and higher income individuals realized how much influence they could buy. And if you have the money to buy the influence and you need the influence, why wouldn't you? Like, logistically, it's legal. It's
but they're gonna play the cards for themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, the fact that money is free speech just makes me. It's not
ridiculous.
It is, but it shouldn't be.
Right, absolutely. And it only is in very recent history. It's actually kind of fascinating to be growing up in our generation, because you think about Citizens United was passed no more than a decade ago. And it's obviously it's a point of contention for a lot of people, but it's still in effect. Like, we've been living most of at least our adult lives, or our politically conscious lives, with that in the mix. So, like, doesn't that color, between that, the Patriot Act, like, so much legislation that was passed that was so like
dynamic shifting.
Yeah, just like, it took the very basic principles of politics and completely turned it on its fucking head. So it's intriguing. This is really funny because I'm listening to myself right now and I'm thinking back to the podcast you guys did with Connor, and I'm like, this is the antithesis of the podcast that you did with Connor.
But that's exactly what we love, dude.
No, absolutely. I wish I could be better sourced right now.
Gotta have you and
Literally
Connor.
no worries.
That'd be really fun, honestly. I really enjoy talking to Connor. I think he has really good insight. I don't mean to slander him at all. I'm just listening to my talking points and remembering his, and I'm like, wow, that's so funny.
Man. I don't know, man. I feel like that it could be a swing of the pendulum. I love my dichotomies.
You do. You love your dichotomies.
And maybe government is swinging right now.
Absolutely. I think
we're going to see a leftward swing in the coming years.
It's fascinating that you say that, because I think it's definitely historically backed up too. But you can see kind of the patterns of where different party politics have taken us. And I mean, we can talk about the Republican tax bill that was just passed, which is
you saw that, dude?
Frightening. I mean, it hasn't quite passed yet, but it was passed initially by both the House and Senate. They passed separate pieces of legislation. That's just how a bicameral legislation works. They work on, like, the Senate version of the bill and the House version of the bill, and then it'll go back to a committee and they'll discuss, kind of negotiate between the two houses and say, all right, well, we made these amendments, which can we keep, which should we delete, and then they can ratify it from there. So it hasn't fully passed, I don't want to misrepresent, but a lot of the stuff that's in there is really frightening for a multitude of reasons. They actually passed a lot of last-minute amendments for, like, abortion is at conception, like, a lot of different shit that they were just like, all right, well, we're passing it.
It's explicitly legal to drill in the Arctic.
Yep.
In all these different places.
Yeah, it's wild. But you look at this tax plan that they're proposing now, and you look historically at tax plans that were proposed by Republican Congresses in 1928 and 1929, right before the Great Depression. You look at the Republican economy, or the Republican policies that formed and affected the economy in the early to late 2000s under Bush, because he started with he helped pass Citizens United and a lot of that, but I totally derailed. I apologize. Give me one
Don't
second
even
to
worry.
agree.
Have you ever heard the Bob Dylan song, He's Just a Pawn in Their Game?
I have. I can't conjure it up quite in my head right now, but I'm a huge fan of Dylan.
It's just him talking to those Southern white man, and how the politicians are like, "You're not black, you got it better, don't complain."
Ooh.
And he's selling them on this idea, and they don't realize that they have all these mutual interests. When you really think about it, someone who makes $0 and someone who makes $1 million have more in common than someone who makes $1 million to someone who makes $1 billion.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Like, I generally understand what you're saying. I just
I'm just looking at the math.
Okay.
Like $1 million, and then from $1 million to $1 billion is
purely from a numbers standpoint. You're absolutely
it's 1,000 millions. Yeah.
Yeah, billion is just like honestly, I think if you gave me $10 million tomorrow, I could super comfortably live for the rest of my life. Like, that's an inconceivable number for me personally, and I think that number varies for different people. But people will say way higher numbers, and it's like, really, you can't, like, $10 million is a lot of money.
Oh my God, I could live
mansions.
forever, man.
Like, if you're even remotely responsible with it, you could be so comfortable.
Dude, imagine getting a loan for $1 million, like Trump did.
A
A small loan of $1 million to start your business.
Ugh.
Like, what did we start this fucking podcast off of?
Yeah, right.
Some
like,
$1,000,
maybe
like
$1,000.
Imagine what we could do with $1 million, man.
Oh my God.
That's
probably
some
ridiculous
units of payment,
shit.
right? We wouldn't be using freaking cameras.
No.
We'd be using video cameras.
Oh my. Yeah, that'd be nice. $1 million podcast show.
Going back to the pendulum.
Yes.
Have you ever heard that Emerson quote where it says the path of a ship is 1,000 tacks left and right, the average of which equal out to a straight line?
No, but I really enjoy that.
That has guided my life in so many ways.
That
Like-
makes a lot of sense. That's
Like, get your shit together, you can have some fun. Get your shit together, have some fun.
Right.
And when you stay in that balance between the two of order and chaos,
yeah, because if you're constantly trying to toe that line, then I think the line itself shifts one way or another.
it does. And then you're not definitively moving ahead through time.
Exactly, because if you take your life and you're on task every single day, like 9 to 5, doing what I need to do, and that's it. Like, bedtime, wake up, do my shit. Bedtime, wake up, do my shit. Like,
That's death.
that's no way to live. Yeah, exactly.
Life is spontaneity, man.
Mm.
And to get stuck in this ritual, this routine, it's just soul grinding, and that's death to me.
No,
To
I
not
totally
have
agree.
the freedom to stray from that.
Unless you create the routine so that it works best for you. If it's the routine that gives you the best fulfillment in your life, like, I mean, I was thinking yesterday, I was talking to Colin, discipline truly equals freedom, but not if it's a discipline that I think someone else sets for you.
Forced discipline.
Yeah, and
I
you're
was
kind
about
of
to say
chasing that carrot on the stick. And B, if I don't know, I kind of lost my train of thought, but I guess just if that discipline prevents you from truly reaching your happiness, and it's like eventually you just keep chasing this one thing, and you're like, all right, I can finally relax if I get this. Like, I'll just keep working harder and harder, and eventually, I don't know, like 30 years later, you get hit by a bus, and all that chasing for nothing.
I think humans get so caught up in, like, we want a one-size-fits-all, like, fix-it button. Like, you'll buy... self-help books are so indicative of this. Who's the Marine that we...
Jocko
Willink.
Jocko.
Navy SEAL.
All right, so using Jocko as an example, and in fairness, I have not read his book, so I can't speak to it, but my understanding from what you guys have conveyed to me, and really, like, on a very basic level, that is a regiment that he made for him with his life experiences, and it works for him, and that's wonderful. But you're adopting that as if your lifestyle has been the exact same experiences that his has been. Like, you need totally different discipline. A lot of it can be the same. It could be a really good, like, backbone for you to build on. But I think it's really difficult for you to just take somebody else's and try and cookie cutter yourself into what worked for somebody else.
Absolutely.
Not to mention that some of the self-help is just like totally pseudoscience-y, or just like leading a horse to water, sort of like dream about what you want.
Yeah.
Achieve that. And it's like, yep, that's life. That is all of life.
Yeah.
Like,
dude, so many of these bullshit motivators act like you gotta, I hate it. They're like, stay up late. You gotta sleep less.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're so wrong.
If
you gotta
you're not
sleep
working yourself
more.
to death, you're not doing good enough.
It's this slow progress, this gradual progress, working in alignment with the sun and with yourself and your motivations. It's not this perpetual grind that we're talking about.
And I believe that's partially, if not mostly, equated to, or thanks to, a corporate society that I think we've built over, like, since probably the 50s. 50s were really, we developed plastic, like, that was when mass market consumerism really cropped up, to my understanding. And I think part of that extension is that we need to work to buy more things, and we need to work to make our bosses happy so that we can make more things that other people can buy. And I think, like, obviously that's a very simple reading of what it is, but I think that has to be a portion of it. Like, we're such a commercialistic culture. Think about how many cars are in this parking lot right now for, like, 20-year-olds. Like, we don't have too much going on, and we were like, we all need this 2-ton death machine to get me to go all the time. And it's only $5,000. It's only $10,000. Like, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of units of payment, man.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about the groceries you could buy with that.
Think about projecting that on a global level. If you took $10,000 and went to, like, Taiwan tomorrow, like, that exchange rate, you're going to live like a king. There's that's honestly a goal of mine, is to go somewhere in Southeast Asia. Obviously, I'd need to learn the language. There's a lot of preparation that needs to go into that. But there's so much fresh food, like, so a different culture, like a totally different culture to sink your teeth into. And really, I'm a mango junkie. And fresh mangoes from the mangroves, that is like, ooh.
Oh.
That's too good.
I actually heard a lot of bodybuilders, not bodybuilders, but powerlifters who move there because they can get such cheap massages.
Really?
Like, you can get massages for $5-10 instead of the $150.
That makes a lot of sense, yeah. Like, deadlifting must suck in, like, LA County, where everybody has money and everybody wants bougie shit like massages. Like, to have to go as an aspiring deadlifter, I'm thinking like Conor McGregor, like, on food stamps so he can train level. Like, dude, those are $300 massages.
Massaging is so integral to being a well-functioning body. We've so left that behind.
Absolutely.
Stretches and massage, I think they go, like, hand in hand. Yes. Stretching's just self-massage, really. Obviously, you can self-massage, but, like,
and self-massage is even important. That's the basics.
Well, people don't really think about it, but, like, when you stub your toe, like, you rub your toe. That's a little massage. When you, like, hit your knee on something, you're like, and you, like, grab your knee for however long. Like, that's a slight, even if it's just like the thumbs rubbing against the spot, like, you're giving some treatment to it.
Yeah, people gotta get in the habit of giving affection to their body and just being thankful. Like, your feet carry you around all day, man. The least you can do is just rub the tension that is built up there over the day, or even just massaging your hands. It's so simple, and it just feels so good when you're done.
Absolutely. Yeah. Projecting that onto a slightly larger scale, one of the quotes that I've been really gravitating to lately is the it's attributed to a lot of different people, so I'm actually not even going to try and attribute it to somebody. I think it originally comes from a rabbi in the 14th century, but it goes, if I am not for myself, who will be? If I am only for myself, what am I? And if I am only for others, I forget the last part. But if I am only for myself, what am I? If I am only for others,
No, I get your point. But you can't be just for yourself. You can't be just for others. You have to be for yourself and for others. And because love for others stems from love for oneself.
And if you're not for yourself, why should anybody else be? Legitimately, why should anybody else be? Like, if you can't put the effort into yourself and saying, like, I love bread. Like, you wake up, you need to give yourself that allowance, you know?
That's such basics, man.
Exactly, and people are so hard on themselves that they leave out the very, very, very basics. Like, maybe that's a detriment to being in such an advanced technological society.
The individual is left behind.
Well, yeah, the growth has been so exponential just in our lifetimes. Like, you think about when we were very, very young, video games were like PlayStation 2 and Game Boy. And if you wanted to listen to music, if you were lucky, you had a CD player that skipped every time the car went over a bump. Like so many ridiculous evolutions that have happened just since we were like 10 to 20.
Right.
That's such a dynamic change that, I mean, obviously technology has increased for everybody who's ever been alive, but I don't think even close to this rate.
Oh,
dude,
no.
I remember trying to play my Game Boy Advance in the car when there was no backlight at night, so I'd be like with it at the window, like trying to get the one friggin' overhead light that I drive on.
I got the Game Boy SP for Christmas one year, and it was like legitimate tears of joy. Oh yeah, it was all over.
Dude, my family's first home computer had a 16 gigabyte hard drive.
Wow.
My phone is 128 gigabytes.
That's insane.
It's absolutely insane. But
and
like,
if you bought a baseline, if you went to the Metro PCS down like the street and bought like the $20 phone that they gave you, that's probably a 16 gigabyte. Like that $20 phone is equivocal to like probably a $1,500 computer, maybe even more. I don't really know.
It's crazy.
Dude, data is so cool. It's
and
expanding. We're needing more and more of it.
Well, now they're looking at quantum computing, and that's just like other level shit. Like, I can't speak to it and do it justice, but it is so fascinating whenever I read about it. Just the ability to calculate on a quantum level rather than having to do it binarily is so fascinating.
Yeah.
Like think about how much binary computers have changed our game. Like we were talking earlier about how technology can be weaponized so quick, and like in 1900 we invented planes, and by 1945 we destroyed a nation with bombs out of a plane. Like it took us
by splitting an atom.
It took us half a century. That's like in human time. And we were just like, all right, so this is cool, but we can totally annihilate this entire nation and bring them to their knees so that we can win a war.
Dude, for real.
Like, that's just such a crazy dynamic shift, and that's kind of what humans do with technology. It's scary. We consistently develop this new, stronger, better, more humane weapon in hopes that it'll end war, and like it never does. The machine gun was invented during the Civil War, and the doctor who developed it thought he was like doing the best thing for humanity, because once people saw these machine guns, they would never want to go to war. And the Civil War had the most casualties of any war
Good idea.
to that date.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, like, the same thing with World War I and chlorine gas. And we were like, oh, okay, well, this will just totally deter people from even coming in. And it's like, no, they're ordered to march in. They're going to keep marching. You, like, killed 1,000 people. It's wild, the tendency to... Of those in power. I don't think it's human nature to try and...
Exactly.
It's when you're pitted against each other, and when we're thinking, what is China up to, and what is Russia up to, and if they develop this technology before we do, then they have the upper hand, so we better just have it on hand.
The race.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's insanity.
It's typically not even the innovator of the technology that uses it in the weaponized manner. Like, the innovator will create it in hopes that, like you said, it'll end war or further humanity, and then somebody else will take it and pimp it to their own usage, kind of like I guess like the scientists who invented the atom bomb. When they invented it, they told every war general, they were like, do not use this. We don't know if it will evaporate the atmosphere.
Right.
They set it off anyway. I think during...
All right, we'll go test it in Nevada.
Like, all right,
we'll go drop it on a Pacific
check
island.
it out. And then I think like Zyklon A, they invented to kill rats. Just that. Like
Dynamite won the first Nobel Prize for chemistry. Dynamite was such a revolutionary, like, for building, just for demolition and building, and then it wound up killing literally millions of people.
Someone else was like, "Oh, hey, this is cool. I'm gonna take this and use it for something
Stupid
else."
Science dweeb.
Dude,
Fucking nerd.
Jordan Peterson was talking about how a lot of genocides stem from the disgust instinct, where Hitler didn't actually think that Jews were these bad people and bad for the environment, but rather he was cleaning up all of Germany and getting into all the different corners, and they were seen as a dirty people, and they were looked at through this disgust lens. And Zyklon A was originally used to kill rats in factories.
And when you refer to people for rodents for a decade and put them in a section of the city called the ghetto and make them eat like rats and live like rats, like, it becomes really easy to believe that they did it to themselves. An easy allegory that might be dicey to some people because like, black people didn't endure the Holocaust, and that is a unique pain. I can't compare the two, but blacks in America and the way that they're portrayed, and the way that they're perceived, I think generally we like. An older friend of ours was talking with us and mentioned that the blacks commit more crime, and it was like, woo! Like, you had to totally, but that's their perception. Like, that's been the perception for hundreds of years, and that's because the people in power push this perception so that we'll digest it. And the more disgusting that, and the more other, I think, like, it doesn't even have to be disgust. Disgust is what it usually is, because I think it's an easy, like, it's almost involuntary, so it's an easy emotion to evoke. Like, if I wanted to make you angry, I have to think about what makes Brett angry. How can I, like, really hurt him to make him angry? If I want to make you disgusted, it's almost universal. Like, if I show you something disgusting, I show you something disgusting, you're both going to go, ugh. Yeah. But, yeah, I think it's a very interesting phenomenon. Horrifying, but, you know, that's where we're at. I think it's really interesting that we're coming into a spot where 20-year-olds can discuss this and be aware of this. Like, we're not studying at an elite university. These aren't ideas that are hard to access. They're online. They're like, we're so lucky to be living in this time, even though it's so scary. I need to believe that this point in history is growing pains to a period of more peace and just, like, recognition that we're human beings. You know, like, obviously things are not always going to be peaceful. We will squabble, like, there will be issues over land and resources and whatever, but, like, what we're squabbling over now will seem so trite, I hope, going forward. And that's just my personal belief system. That's, like, my personal rationale, I guess, for where we're at right now.
How you're saying about how quickly the airplane accelerated, I feel like we're at a turning point right now, and we could accelerate very quickly in a bad direction, or very quickly in a good direction.
And we won't know. That's the scary part. Like, last week, I read a headline that Russia, like, just announced to the entire UN body, like, we're not going to believe or follow anything you say about militarized robots.
I saw that.
That's the future, homie.
They just said they won't listen.
Yep. And, like, what's binding them to listen? That's always been the flaw of these united bodies. Like, the League of Nations was the solution after World War I. We were like, this can never happen again. This was terrible. We'll form the League of Nations. And then the U.S. balked on it, and then other countries balked on it, and then it didn't have the enforceability and actually led partially to World War II. And I'm not saying that the UN is inherently flawed. I think it's a great system. I think it's great for what we use it for. I think it could be empowered a lot more. I think right now it's just a place for countries to flex and to go and say, like, oh, okay, so we're America, and we're going to say that we're in support of this resolution, and then we can go back to America and not follow any of this resolution. Like,
absolutely.
Like, we've done that historically so much over the past 70 years, I guess, since the United Nations has been created.
Do you know what I find beautiful, though? Now we have the upper echelon of American government ignoring these pacts, such as the Paris Climate Agreement, and even though they're very basic, it's no stretch for us to really meet these goals.
Right.
But we see a bottom up perspective. Now we see local towns and mayors and different businesses saying we will stick to the Paris Accords.
That's actually, I'm really glad you touched on that. That's part of what I kind of meant to touch on with the growing pains sensation, is that we're getting back to our roots. We're getting back to what democracy is supposed to be like, because it was so much easier to, like, you just elect somebody every 2 years and then every 4 years for president, and, like, bam, like, done. I don't have to think about any of the issues. I just think about my guy when it's time. And, like, clearly that was a detrimental thought pattern, because here we are, but we're relearning. We're going, okay, what is democracy? We're really kind of rediscovering it, I think. And I mean, there have always been people who canvass. There have always been people who firmly believe in democracy and try to spread it. I think we got so lazy and complacent as a population that we really didn't care about.
We gave them the control.
Exactly.
We gave them the power because we didn't want the responsibility.
And we weren't paying attention.
Yep.
And we now have the technology to constantly pay attention, to the point that people are manipulating it so we don't know what we're paying attention to. Like, the information's been...
Flood the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's totally been the strategy. It's really fascinating to see it play out in real time. Like, it's genuinely interesting, but also it's horrifying from, like, a human standpoint, you know?
It's funny when someone knows something about them is going to come out, and they just get it out first so that they can put the spin on it and get the initial idea in the people's... Like, I forget what Trump's son got in trouble for.
Colluding with Russia.
Colluding with Russia, yeah. And he just put it out there right away.
Yeah, he was like, here are the emails. And we were like, geez, we didn't say anything about emails, dude. Like, take it down a notch.
Exactly. Because he wants to get it out there. He wants to get... Like, if someone comes in and yells at you... If you get in a fight with a customer at work... You better get on that phone with your boss first.
Yeah. Hey, we got a crazy that came in and da-da-da-da. She, wanted a coupon. I said, that's a piece of hair and I can't accept it. You're going to get a call. Like,
yeah, otherwise they're going to go in and the boss is going to be more likely to agree with that person.
Absolutely. Because by the time they're talking to your boss, they can be, like, level-headed again and go, oh, your employee was so disrespectful. And, of course, like, they're talking to the customer. They're going to side with the customer.
Yeah, and they can spin the story any way they want to, really.
Oh, absolutely. They can say you hit them and it's a he said, she said, like, unless you have security camera footage, but that's, like, not necessary for this hypothetical scenario.
Yeah, security cameras are such a blessing and a curse.
Oh, such an advent. Like, I talk to my parents and hear about, like, just the hijinks that they got into. Nothing crazy. Like, my mom once, like, poured laundry soap into a fountain in the middle of town, and it's just, like, it made suds and bubbles, and, like, it stopped traffic for 30 minutes. And, like, today that would be criminal mischief. Like, that would be a felony, but it was just, like, something cute and funny and, like, really pretty harmless. But that's security camera footage. Like, there's no knowledge. Yeah, there's no way to know. Because, like, chances are there might not be camera footage if you go to, like, break into an abandoned building or something. Like, there's probably not camera footage, but that thought's going to be in your mind. Like, you're thinking surveillance. And if you're thinking surveillance, you're not going to do the bad thing. Which I don't think is necessarily negative, but it's definitely... It's authoritarian in its roots, I think. Yeah. If you're thinking about not doing it, not because it's the right thing to do, but because you're afraid of being caught by some omniscient force, then that's pretty authoritarian, I think. I don't think that's unfair to miscategorize.
You put the cops in their brain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It's like thought crime almost. It's a step past thought crime.
I actually heard Carl Jung say that about... Well, I heard Terence McKenna saying that's what Carl Jung said, that yoga was originally practiced to free themselves of the customs of Eastern culture, because the whole karma system was saying if you don't get caught in the physical world, the spirits are going to get you in the next coming world.
Interesting.
It's a way of putting like I said, putting the police into the people's minds. So Carl Jung actually said that the West should not practice yoga as a spiritual discipline.
Interesting.
It could be just a stretching of the muscles. It's good stretching, but he doesn't think that it should be a spiritual thing, because it was a specific reaction to living in a certain political environment.
I can definitely understand that, though. It's like, this is a really bad comparison, but like the punk movement in Britain, and like American bands tried to capture that punk movement, and like the sound was just so totally inauthentic. Like the Sex Pistols were an authentic, like, you may like or dislike the Sex Pistols, but they were clearly an advent of the British punk rock era, and obviously America wanted to replicate it and go like, oh, we'll take this and we'll make it ours, like we always do, like we did with rock and jazz and the blues and folk and whatever else. And we failed because it was inauthentic, and I think art has to be authentic. Art inherently, or rather, I personally am attracted to authentic art. I'm attracted to any art where somebody can say, this is me, this is what I'm projecting to you. It's not, it's not an idealized version of myself. It's not something to convey a better story. This is authentically a story I need to tell.
It's funny how these ideas, you can incorporate someone's ideas and still put your own spin on it too, though. Like, I've been looking at this artist Chuck Close. I believe I showed you.
Yeah, you did.
And I love how he plays on the macro and the micro scale. So where there's a little black, he'll paint a mini picture in the black square, and then as you zoom out, it becomes the actual picture. But I can't. That's not my original idea. You know what I'm saying? So I can't call that. If I was to make something based upon that,
there are zero original ideas. Like, it's so good that we can take a twist on something that somebody else created, because that's all of humanity. That is literally everything that we've ever done. Like, I'm sure at one point somebody carved like a diamond wheel, and some asshole was like, "That's good, but what we can do," and just like chiseled off the points and was like, "Here we go." You know, like, people have made podcasts before. This is your turn on a podcast. There would be no creativity left. Like, everything. I think songs especially, yeah. It's like really tough to think of a combination of words that would make sense to the vast public that hasn't been used before. Because, like, what do you generally hear songs about? Like, it's anger, it's love.
Yeah, basic human emotions.
Yeah, and it should be. That's what art is. It's like...
That's how you connect with it, yeah.
Exactly. But I think... Yeah, it's definitely... It's strange that there's no, like, organic, authentic first thought anymore. Well, I'm sure there occasionally is, but we're not really experienced with it. You know, like, occasionally there's a Nikola Tesla that just comes around and is like, "Hey, we're gonna do this crazy stuff," and generally they're cast out from society because we're not ready for it. You know, Galileo was killed by the church because he said the Earth was round and the solar system didn't revolve around it, and like that was enough for the Catholic Church to be like, dead. Burned, gone. Like, sure, you've revolutionized all of our understanding of the universe, but we hate you for it because it's slightly different from our worldview. So, pyre.
Catholicism has had some dark times.
And not just Catholicism. Like, it's the one that we may have more experience with personally, but I mean, there's beauty and evil in all spiritual disciplines, I think. Like, Buddhism, I think, is generally romanticized as, like, the most peaceful of the religions. And, like, there are Shaolin monks that kill Hindus, like, regularly.
Yeah.
Like, it's been going on for hundreds of years. It'll go on for hundreds of years.
I don't see pure pacifism as a spiritually enlightened standpoint.
No, definitely not.
I think that sometimes, and this is a gray area, sometimes you have to kill for the good.
I mean, life is a gray area, and you bring your experiences. Like, I've never hunted before, so I really, like, cannot be in the same perspective as you guys when you speak to that. But my experience, I don't know, I'm trying to turn it over in my head right now. It's not something I feel I could comment on genuinely right now, but I think it's definitely an interesting thought.
I just see it as evil will happily destroy the good.
Actually, I really like that. I just kind of, when you phrased it that way, I kind of put it into a political standpoint almost. And like,
the good has to be able to fight for itself, or it will be stamped out by these things that are willing to.
Yeah, because you look at, like, our legislature is made up of people from counties all around the country. Like, every one county or district has a representative, and it's just like some asshole from Shiloh, Wyoming that's like, okay, so I'm going to go to DC and talk for Shiloh. And I'm sure there's 438 representatives in the House of Representatives, I believe. And of those 438, I'm sure 375 are genuinely good people interested in helping their home district. And all it takes is 50 people in positions of power to pass, like, write legislation that will be voted on, control what legislation gets to the floor to be voted on and discussed, and ultimately be a tiebreaker when votes are close. So, like, the vice president is the president the president of the Senate, and they're able to preside over the Senate. And if the Senate is split 50-50 on an issue, the vice president makes that decision, and that's like not an abuse of power by any means. That's how our system's drawn up, but it's also like that is the executive branch stepping into the legislative branch and being able to say, our policy is this is what's happening. And it's happened a lot in recent months with Mike Pence, and there have been a lot of close decisions that were 49-51, 50-50, and he's always done the tying vote or the tie-breaking vote. And I don't know, I think occasionally, obviously, tiebreakers are necessary, but it's also, it opens you up to an abuse of power standpoint, I think, when you are able to make decisions in 2 out of 3 bodies of legislature. And really, they nominate the people for the Supreme Court, too. So at the end of the day, the executive branch, we've dissolved a lot of the checks and balances that we think are in place for our government. Like in civics class in 10th grade, you learn about checks and balances. And a lot of those are based not on hard laws, but on norms. And norms and laws are totally different. Like a norm is, I won't insult you because I know it'll upset you. And like, I can insult you. It's just, there will be repercussions. And a law, obviously, is punishable in the court of law. Yeah.
Do you know what's super interesting? One of my anthropology teachers talks about how the state has a monopoly on violence.
Ooh.
The state sets itself outside of the rules and says, none of you can do any violence to each other. But we can. Because we are this governing body outside of itself.
Yeah.
And I think inherently that's not necessarily a bad thing, because a government ideally is a representation of its people. And if 324 million Americans are saying we should go to war with X country, that's what's going to happen. Like, you'll have enough troops, you'll have the motive, and there must be some reason that 324 million people would want to go to war. That's what a government's supposed to be. It's just representative of a greater democracy. Or our government, rather. Definitely not a government in general. There's all different types. We can do the Schoolhouse Rock of government later.
Now, something I really want to touch on is, because I know, have you finished Man's Search for Meaning, or are you still currently reading it?
Yes.
You finished it?
Yeah.
Dude, that book changed my perception on life itself.
Absolutely.
What were your general takeaways from that book?
I mean, it's first and just on the surface, it's perspective.
For those who don't know, we give a quick background about.
So, Man's Search for Meaning. A man entered. He was a psychologist by trade, and unfortunately was subjected to the Holocaust as a Jew of Austrian descent, I believe, and interned in a couple different camps, and really went through a lot of suffering. And the way that he survived was thinking about this book that he later wrote. And he sort of looked at it as a case study, and he was a scientist just observing suffering at its greatest, because that was, and still I think remains, the most objective suffering that we can point to as humanity, and just like, my God, how did we let this happen? Like, other genocides have been terrible, but not as publicized, and therefore not as well known, or just not as recent. But he gave me a lot of perspective, because I was dealing with my own health issues at the time and dealing with mental health issues at the time. And it gives you a perspective, not that you're not allowed to suffer, but that suffering won't help you. Like, there is a place for suffering. Absolutely. It's inevitable. It will happen. Like, there will be pain. That's just life. Like, we go through 100 years on this earth. If we're lucky, we're going to hurt at some point. But it gave me a larger perspective, because obviously I knew the Holocaust happened, but it was just, it's really harrowing. I recommend anybody listening to this reads it. It's a very short book. He writes first about his experiences, and then kind of a second blurb about his psychological analyses.
Logotherapy.
Logotherapy.
That's his theory of how people ascribe belief. I'm sorry, meaning.
Yeah.
How to find meaning.
A passage that really struck me, that was from the beginning portion of the book. He said that the best people in those camps did not make it.
I swear to God, I was going to bring this up to you.
Because like that, it's harrowing just to read, but then you sit back and reflect on that, and you're like, that's not meant as an insult to the people that survived the camps. They survived because they weren't the best people, because the best of the best, like the empathetic, the caring people who
stood for something.
If we 3 were interred and one of us was a very empathetic individual, they'd probably share a little extra bread towards the beginning, and like, that's not how you survive. That's just not how you survive in those situations. But it really, really struck me, and it honestly, it kind of haunts me,
because you have to be selfish in order to get out of there.
Yeah, exactly. And it's ultimately, it's you. Like, and that's sort of a universal truth, because we're so blessed to have friends and family and like peers, coworkers, like so many people. We've developed an amazing society where we can interact like pretty symbiotically. But at the end of the day, it's you, yourself, and I. Like, all of that could be removed in a second. And that's not to sound morose or to be negative. Like, that's just a simple fact of life. Like, anything outside of your being can be removed from you.
And when you die, you're going in alone, man.
Right, like, yeah, that's your consciousness or your being or whatever you
return to the source.
Believe. Yeah, I gravitate to that sort of interpretation. I wouldn't consider myself religious personally, but I actually really gravitate at, I guess the Quakers actually put it best. The Meeting House of Friends is their like actual name. They're just called the Quakers because British people are shitty, and they were scared because they were pacifists. But their core belief isn't in a sentient God, but rather in a light source. So there's a, like, namaste means the light in me sees the light in you. And that's another interesting, like, the fact that ancient Indians and Quakers were able to come to the same consensus is kind of intriguing to me. And obviously there's coincidences in any different religion. It's not a confirmation that it's correct. I just really enjoy it. Because I think you do have those encounters where you run into somebody you've never met before in this life. And you feel a legitimate connection to them. And, like, maybe your soul, light, whatever you want to call it, was in proximity to their soul, light, whatever you want to call it, in the grand soul, light, whatever you want to call it.
It's like the first page of that Leary book. Consciousness is equal to light, which is equal to energy, which is equal to love. It's all the same trip. It's all the same.
Oh,
I love that book. The idea that love is the same as energy, I thought about that.
It is, and this is actually, you're going to love this because it's dichotomy chat, because there's love and there's hate, and they're both energy, but there's, a lot of people believe that hate is an extension of love, that you have to have that capacity, but that's not something that I personally subscribe to, because we were talking earlier about genocide. I think that is a hate totally devoid of love. I think most hate is devoid of love. I think it's a very, very specialized kind of hate where, you know, you have a long-term relationship and it ends poorly, and there's a lot of hurt there, and it's a coagulated, like, there's hurt and there's love and there's so much to try and understand, and it's easy. I think that's ultimately what it is it's easy to hate. It's easy to...
It's hard to be soft.
It's hard to understand. It's hard to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and say, all right, so from their perspective, what are they thinking? Because it's so much easier to go, no, fuck you, you're wrong, I'm right. Like, that's it. Because you stay in your worldview, you don't have your beliefs challenged. Yeah. Like, it's so much easier, but it's so much less rewarding. Like, think about how undeveloped as a human you would be if you never conceded on any ideological, like, if you never went, I've never thought of it that way. How devoid of, like, consciousness you'd be.
So Trump?
Death. Yeah. So Trump.
So Trump.
The man has probably never had a self-reflective thought in his life.
I don't know. There's like 140 character self-reflective thoughts.
True. Should we take a brief intermission?
Let's take a brief intermission. Drew, I think we should invest in fucking cameras soon. Video cameras.
I think so. Just like some cheap little like Canon camcorders.
Just start trolling. Oh, Black Friday would have been the time to do it. But if you keep your ear to like Newegg, or actually there's a lot of like, do you guys know what If This Then That is?
No.
It's like an app that you can download, and it's just the whole foundation is that you can make little applets within it, and so like when I enter my car, it turns my Bluetooth on so it can connect in stereo or something like that. When I get an email with a coupon, it saves it in my Google Drive. Just little shit like that, but you could make them for whatever you wanted.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. We could get used ones too.
Dude, that's what I want, is technology to start learning and move forward and work for us more.
Absolutely.
Like, it's very rudimentary.
Have you ever read about universal basic income?
Yes.
I think it's a really, really fascinating principle, just like looking at what we're dealing with in today's world, and like look at the problems in Appalachia, and like if they had even just like a Social Security comparable, like $700 a month to just like feel safe with, like not necessarily just to live on, like you can make more money, you can do whatever enterprise you want, you can create whatever art you want. Like, I think we'd be such an amazing society. You know, like
That's what art's
still
creative.
innovate and make these businesses that become these corporations that make these products. Like, that's just encouraging more of that, I think. And if people want to create art, then that's where they're wanting to be. That's where they're probably supposed to be.
I can see the positives and negatives. I don't see the negatives outweighing the positives on that by too much, though.
I wouldn't say, like, let's integrate it tomorrow. I don't think it's for today's world. But I think starting to think about it and talk about it is huge. Because it may not be the solution, but I think it's the right direction, at least. And I think once that's a more universally accepted idea...
Battery?
Are we good?
We're good.
Okay, cool, sorry. But once that's not necessarily even accepted, like literally just understood, then people will propose other ideas in counter to that, in improvement of that. Kind of like what we were saying earlier about, like, there's no unique thought. Like, we're constantly improving, and that's even better, because that means somebody's unique thought can be improved into another unique thought, which can be improved into, you know.
Yeah, you build on what you have.
No doubt, because if something amazing were invented and it just stayed the way it was for the rest of its lifespan,
television.
Yeah, exactly.
Television's
Like,
a great example.
We still want like
if we had like tube colorless television sets, there would not be a television in anybody's houses
with 3 channels.
But because people invented like the Xbox One, where you can watch Netflix through it, and like Amazon Fire Stick, like any number of devices that you can plug into this to TV and access the internet, because that's really what we're after.
Yeah, it's that competition, that healthy level of competition.
The internet is next level entertainment.
It is.
Like, my parents don't understand.
No,
you know
dude.
what I'm saying?
I'm still wrapping my head around it.
We don't
Exactly.
understand. Like,
Dude, I always say, this guy down the Cape I met, John, he's just this hippie on the beach. I love the guy. And, dude, we just listen to music, but I was talking to him about how cool it must have been to have music as that wave in society. Like Grateful Dead, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Jimi Hendrix. Like, they're all happening in a real
and that's
short span.
That's kind of what I was trying to get at earlier. Like, allowing people to pursue these artistic passions really progresses society. I believe that arts progress society. It's kind of a chicken and the egg thing, because like art is clearly more prominent when a society is at its like pinnacle. Like the Renaissance era was because the Roman Empire was so vastly successful that they could paint these masterpieces.
And dude, in order for like great art to be conceived and made, there has to be excess in the society.
Exactly. If you have to provide, like, if you have to work 60 hours a week in a coal mine to provide for your family, you're not painting. Like, you're amazing if you do, but you're probably not painting. That's exhausting manual labor that you need to do to support the society, support your family. Like, once we've automated stuff like that, what else are we gonna do? Like, why wouldn't we be more philosophical, be more artistic, be more creative, be more, I don't know.
Dude, now this sounds so elitist and kind of pretentious, but what if on the whole theme of society, or like total scheme of society, like artists and philosophers and writers, they're the flower at the top of it.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
I don't know. I don't think like
you said,
all
it
of society
improves
should look
society.
up for any like specific. I think the beauty in a society is that, like, if your mom's a doctor or a nurse, then you look up to her. You might go into the medical field. Like, I notice a lot of people follow similar passions to like their family craft, you know. Because like, yeah, if everybody wanted to be an artist, then we'd be fucked. Like, there'd be no way to operate on us when appendixes exploded. Like, there are, like, those are actually some of the logical people that we were talking about earlier, who are like purely logical, make really fucking good surgeons.
Yeah.
Like, the best surgeons
Very
are
true.
Generally
super mechanical.
Yeah,
they can just
exactly.
get good at something.
super pragmatic.
Yeah.
And accountants and engineers.
Yeah, and it's not just related to the STEM fields either. It's just those are typically where they crop up. I'm sure there have been ridiculously pragmatic artists that, like, actually I bet who was the impressionist artist, the French artist that did the dot paintings, like the super super small dots that composed. Not the guy that you were talking about earlier, but
it's not
the
Monet
very
is
famous
like
one is like a river, and there's a bridge and like a bunch of people.
a bunch
at
of
the
people
park.
walking around. I know exactly who you're talking about, but I don't know the name of the guy.
But like that
I know
dude,
the painting.
that dude had to be
It's
so
not Monet,
meticulous. I don't know.
No, it's not Monet, I don't think.
But,
Dude, that's kind of like the Chuck Close thing.
Yeah, he has to be so meticulous to focus on these very small and still have a macro image in mind. Like, that's insane. That's not a normal human being in the best way possible.
Yeah.
Van Gogh. Van Gogh.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying too about how society in excess or a society that's thriving produces the best artists. You also see, I feel like you see less art in a society where times are tough and they're living in squalor.
Mm-hmm.
But the small amounts of art that you do see are incredible. And they're so deep.
And I do believe it's a balance of the two. I don't necessarily think that like a society in excess might not encourage people to flourish artistically, because we are a society in excess and we are gluttons. Like, yes, we develop a lot of cultural stuff, but like, how high quality is the average television show, movie, song? Like, there are very, very talented individuals out there, and most people who are out there are talented.
Yeah.
But like, the average, like, there's so much media that the average whatever is not that high standard.
Right.
And a common understanding of history, like a super, super concise one, is that, like, strong men in bad times make weak men in good times, make strong men in bad times, like a cycle.
Yeah.
And I think it's just that no society has hit the good balance of, like, and if you study, this is really, really simplifying things, so, but like ancient Greece, they had Athens, which was an artistic, cultural, philosophical capital. And they had Sparta, which was an insanely machismo, like, violence, we kill babies if they're not tough enough colony. And those two coexisted. I mean, they battled at some points, but, like...
Yeah, when there's a greater
under
threat.
the Great Greek Empire, those two were both thriving.
Yeah.
And they just recognized, like, all right, we definitely need both of these to succeed.
Wow.
Dude, I think those are two poles of how to be. And if you just stay in, like, a perfect harmony of them two, you could be a pretty badass society. Like, if you stay rigid and in the body
Nobody's
like that,
hit
but also...
sweet spot.
Yeah, exactly, dude.
So, kill a little bit of babies, but still have philosophy.
Dude, no, it's like ditch the baby stuff. Keep the whole warrior culture, like, strong in your fit in your body.
Yeah.
And then, like, on the other side of things, like, keep the creative side and maybe don't keep, like, the pretension and non-inclusion. Like, there's, and again, we're painting with such a wide brush, but
yeah, dude, I like it's like the Spartan wives. He'd be like, "Come home with your shield or on it."
yeah,
Like, whoa,
bitch, slow down.
like I want to come home.
What if I lose
Can't
my
we just
shield?
have a nice talk before I have to go stab people with the spear? Like,
Right?
I need some reassurance.
Dude,
I'm going
that's
to kill
next
human
level.
beings.
When
Like,
we used to like stab each other with spears. That's like a gun.
can
You're
kill
so
somebody from,
removed.
like, people have shot targets like miles away. Obviously, it doesn't happen commonly, but like there's the capacity now. to
Dude,
do
what
that.
about a drone?
Drone? Exactly.
Like-
we were talking earlier about that.
Plug into the VR.
Killer robots. Like, you can legit, like, Predator drones were legitimately a kill streak in Modern Warfare 2. Like, you were able to just get a computer and you opened it and you killed the other players with a missile.
Dude.
And that is something that people join the military, and like lieutenants in the military create like havoc, like blow up sometimes weddings, like obviously with the target being terrorists, but like there's no connection to that. Like, to stab a human being in war versus to just, like, pick up a joystick, like, fly this missile into, like, a grouping of 100 people in the desert 3,000 miles away, and then get up and, like, go to the water cooler. Like, there's no connection.
Dude, have you seen the drones, the drone skit that I showed you? Where he, like, it's just this weird guy walking around the drone.
No,
like
you haven't showed it to me.
Oh, it's so funny. I forget the guy's name, but he's just sitting there and he's just so bad. I'm having trouble conveying it because it's so complex. But my favorite skit in it is when this one guy he's having a feud with, and he's like, oh, those he tries to take his donuts. He's like, those are my donuts, and he's like. He just looks at him with all his donuts. He's like, I've had 3 donuts before you even wake up in the morning. It's so funny.
That's so fucking funny.
Oh my god. Yeah, drones are crazy. And
And
it
contrastly, like we were talking about, like I'm sorry,
go on.
Contrastly, like we were talking about how everything is just a tool, like because those seem like we can use the same tool like a drone, and you can use it and fly it over Carver Pond and get gorgeous aerial shots that we can appreciate, like the nature that surrounds us. Like it can be used for whatever, but when you strap a bomb to it, which humans always fucking do, back to the airplane chat, like yeah, it's just
we always do, man. It's just like throwing a big rock from really far.
Honestly, like it's like 2001: Space Odyssey. Like that whole evolution is just like, how do we kill shit now? Dude, like it's monkeys hitting each other with a bone, and it's Hal the robot. Like, bitch, your mind now,
dude. Literally, yeah, literally. Remember I turned that on. I had no idea what to expect because one guy recommended it to me, and I turned it on, and it's just these apes like jumping around. I was like, whoa, is this the right movie?
What are you doing to me, Dave?
That movie was you had to sit through it, but it's insane.
We watched it in my 10th grade astronomy class.
Wow.
Shout Chip Hill, my instructor.
That's sick.
Yeah, he was just like a super calm, weird dude. He got up and demonstrated being a cow on one of the tables, like how a cow's tail waves a certain way during certain weather patterns, and like just got up on the middle table and demonstrated. And now he's the vice principal of Sandwich High School. Shouts Chip Hill.
Damn, dude,
wow.
That's a come up.
We had one guy get fired in my junior high because there was a lockdown, and he said to one of the kids, just pretend like there's a guy standing outside the door with an AK-47 about to shoot you. And the kids started freaking out. And
of course they did.
They all told the parents, and then he got shit canned. He was nice, though, dude. We used to go and play chess with him after school. He was like a good... I think that he was just like a good shit and just didn't even comprehend that at all.
He was just trolling.
Do you guys ever have like really weird substitute teachers?
Oh my
like, we
god!
probably
I got
can't
stories
do names or
for
shouldn't
you.
do names, but like let's do
No
some
names.
fucking weird sub stories. We had this old woman who would come in, and she like insisted we call her Doctor instead of Mrs. And she like. Most subs do like an icebreaker, like, oh, we'll get to know the class so I can know all the kids' names. And she was like, just say your name and one fact about you. And like, it's like, oh, I'm Colin and I have 9 siblings. Like, oh, okay, yeah, move on, da-da-da-da. I have a guinea pig. And it finally comes around to her, and she was like, when I was 2 years old, I once put a cat in a bag and threw it out my apartment.
Oh my god!
And all the class is just like, what the fuck? So we laughed, and she screamed at us. She was like, that's not funny. And we were like, then why'd you tell it to us? Like, this was an icebreaker.
Holy shit. She's like...
She's a trip.
She's like, I'm a sadistic motherfucker.
Don't you dare laugh about it.
She's a force.
Dude, laughter is such a binding together, and it's an attack from afar. Like, it's the group opinion swaying around you, and you're like, fuck.
Also, kids in a mob are, like, the worst. Like, substitute teaching can be a terrifying
I feel
job.
bad for them.
Yeah, I genuinely
looking back.
do.
Dude,
like,
we were bad, man.
We were bad. There was this little Sri Lankan woman she's the nicest woman, but she's, like, the height of the students when we were in 7th grade. So, if you noticed her in the hallway, it was, like, at second glance, and it was always really funny. But she was deathly afraid of cats, and she subbed for our 8th grade math class, and like she would turn around to write on the whiteboard, and a kid would meow, and she'd freak out, and she legitimately, like, I swear to God this is true, called the office and demanded that a janitor be sent upstairs to check the walls for cats. And like we spent time in this class period for a janitor to like hit the concrete like cinder block walls with a stick to show her that there were no cats.
What if she's just the ultimate troll?
And then the next class went in, and like some kid had texted a kid in the next class, and the first kid that meowed, the entire class got like detention. So we had just narrowly escaped our just.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
She had her eyes peeled that time.
Oh, Sandwich does amazing work with employing substitute teachers. In 5th grade gym class, I had a man in casual conversation to a bleacher full of 5th graders tell everyone that this part of the hand is the tastiest part on the human body.
Whoa.
And then like ... so I've heard. And we were like, what the fuck?
Swim.
That shook me for weeks, dude. Like, what do you mean?
Oh God.
Yeah, it's always a journey.
Yeah, there's some darkness, and like you said, the students are brutal,
Terrible.
and they truly don't hold back because I feel like their psyches just haven't locked on to the fact that these are people yet.
Exactly.
They're still pushing their boundaries.
They're not.
They're seeing what they can get.
Yeah, and you're hormonal and you hate everything. Like you want to just lash out at everything, and if you can fuck up an authority figure, that's such a power trip for a 12-year-old.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. It's
Hell
sad.
Let's go. Like,
it's very funny when you're there, but looking back, you're like, wow.
You're like, oh my God, that poor woman. Like, she drove home that day and was like, why do I substitute to you?
Yeah.
Actually, going back to that Sri Lankan woman, she came in, we had to sell these stupid cards. I played freshman football, which is astonishing to anybody that's still watching this. And it was awful. But we had to sell these $150 like discount cards because schools don't fund sports at all. And they were like, we need to buy equipment. So they just made us slaves and like we had to sell these. And she walked up to the CVS that me and my friend were selling these at, and she was like, no, I hate this school. And I was like, oh, I had a part in that.
Dude, we had this one teacher in junior senior high. No, yeah, junior high. Mm-hmm. She would cry every class, dude, or most classes, and she'd be like, "Why are you guys so hard? Like, I don't understand." And then she ended up quitting, like, not even halfway through the school year, because the kids at Holbrook are just obstinate. Like, you will not push them around.
You will not.
And I'd just sit there and just the class would just be rebelling around me, and I'm like, whoa, like, all
just
right.
Enjoying the chaos.
Yeah.
Like, the dog meme, the like, this is fine while the room around
the room's just
inflating.
burning.
Oh my God.
I love that though, just staying calm in the face of chaos.
We once had a lady give a fake name to substitute at our high school. Like, my friend had her for calculus, and she spent the whole 90-minute class period. They were drawing pictures, and she judged like the best pictures. Like,
Upon what meter?
she literally, no, so come to find out the week after, the school had to come in and apologize to the class, and they were like, she's not cleared to be a substitute. We took her off the list years ago, and she came in and gave a different name and, like, taught the class, and we're sorry. But he took video, and I was, like, blown away that this woman, like, just ranting on. I guess she was, like, drinking during the day, too, so it was, like, really an experience.
Damn. Dude, one guy just showed up to my middle school, and he was in total military gear. He's like, I'm here to talk to the students today. And they, like, let him in. And he walked in and was talking about Area 51 and how they were fighting aliens and all this shit. And it turns out he wasn't even in the military, and he just, like, bought the thing, and it was this huge crisis because it sounds like you guys just let this guy into a classroom with students
because he went to a Gone Bananas Army Navy.
Fucking G.I. Joe walks into a school.
Dude, kids I knew were getting, like, interviewed by the news and shit.
That's wild.
I wasn't in the class, but I was in the building.
Yeah. Was your high school ever in the news? What happened? Like, I had a couple
happened.
times that, like, crazy shit, and we were like, Like, one time my friend was angry and hormonal in 8th grade, and he was fighting with a kid because, like, he stole his girlfriend or something. I honestly forget the circumstances. But he said, he texted the kid, like, they were going to fight, so they wanted to fight behind the bleachers of the football stadium, and he was like, come to the back of the bleachers, and you better bring your fucking samurai sword.
Whoa.
Because the kids... The kid's dad was like a Navy SEAL or something and had like a commemorative sword. So it was just a stupid fucking like dig.
He just texted him like, come get cut.
This blew up to a legitimate court case.
Whoa.
Like, they pressed charges as like threatened assault. Like, it was a whole fucking thing. It was.
I could see it though.
We get in the headlines for the stupidest things.
Dude, Bridgewater has been in the news plenty.
Oh yeah.
Like, the other thing was the football team had a hazing issue. Because a freshman kid got a broomstick shoved up his butt.
Whoa.
Yeah, like fuck the kids that did that. Like, terrible thing, but, like, not a great image for SHS.
Right?
No.
Dude, I heard...
Blue Knight Pride.
Do you know what was a really interesting comparison I heard? I heard just the act of drugging somebody with anything is the same level as rape. Do you agree with that?
I think on a...
Because it's like rape of the senses.
Yeah, on a literal... I don't think it's the same violation. I don't think you can replicate that violation, but, like... Obviously, I can't speak to it either as as a man, but like, oh fuck. There's gonna be a stark contrast pre and post
break.
Talking about shitty subs and I'm fucked up to fucking continuous sentence.
Dude, you wanted to talk about North Korea and that fucking defect.
Oh,
I'm glad to, but let me tell you one story of a substitute
please,
teacher
dude,
from
hit
Old
us with
Colin.
it.
please.
So, this man was a retired military man. I'm not sure what war he fought in, but he fought in one of the wars, and he was very, very elderly. Substitute teacher. He was one of those that he was kind of like a close talker. Like he would get up in the students' faces.
He didn't have the bubble.
He had no
bubble.
concept of the bubble. But one of the things he liked to do he would start talking real quiet, and he would be like moving up the roller coaster of conversation, and then he would fucking scream and like get the students like wake them up. And one time he's talking about the pride and glory of being a soldier, and he's like, I love this country and I'll do anything for this country, but if you think for 1 second that I'm gonna risk my life for oil, and if he had a hat, he would have thrown it on the ground that moment, dude. Two of the girls like shrieked because he screamed it. But long story short, he I think may have had PTSD as well.
Absolutely.
Because one of the students in another class yelled grenade, and
Whoa.
he dove from the front of the class under the desk. And when I heard the story, of course I was much younger, I laughed my ass off. But, looking back, that is fucking
that's
dark.
So dark.
It's
that
so dark.
crosses
Really
a line,
dark.
even
Yeah.
For like a fear of cats is one thing. Like riling up legitimate combat memories.
Oh my god.
I wish I had like photo evidence of some of these people. Like there was an old guy that legitimately his face appeared to be like his jowls were so pronounced that he legitimately appeared to be melting. Like to the eye,
Whoa.
he appeared to be melting, and he was
my
just
God.
when he got angry, his jowls shook a ton. So it was really fun to rile him up, like totally like a fucking pit bull or something. It was gold,
Dude,
but I can't like convey that,
I just had one more story. That freshman year, dude, one of the subs had an eye patch, and
Game
Game over.
Like,
And this was my first year at the school. Now I'd seen him one day earlier in the year, but the second time I'd ever seen him subbing at the school was on Halloween. And we were walking the halls, and one of my friends leaned over to this kid that everyone like used to troll him, and he was like, oh yeah, he's a pirate for Halloween, get that. And he walks past him, and he's like, arg matey, I'm a pirate too. And I was just like, oh! I turned around, I was like, no.
Oh no.
Dude, dark.
Do you remember those kids that you could just like get to do something so you did it? Like, there was this kid on the football team, and the poor fucking kid, if you made him laugh too hard, he threw up. And he was really easy to get to laugh really hard. So the football team would always we'd be sitting in the cafeteria and we'd be like, yo, and then rip a fart or something, and this kid would start laughing, and we'd just keep saying crude things, and the kid would laugh so hard, and he's like, guys stop, and it became more pleading, and he'd be like,
oh man.
The football team, they're gonna do depraved.
Dude.
They're literal gladiators.
Absolutely.
They are high school gladiators.
In high school, we had the thing called the shit chair, where we took a bag of cookies and added a little bit of water, and then you just mash it up in there, and it comes out looking just like a turd, like the double chocolate cookie. And then we just put that on the chair. So then when people would go put their tray away, we'd swap the chair out for the shit chair. And so people would come back and they'd look down. If they didn't look down, the whole table's just sitting there waiting for you to sit in it. Another thing is people would put milk cartons under the seats of the chair. I remember one time this kid did it to this other kid, and he put 4 milk cartons, and they were all facing forward, and the kid just sat down and milk just sprayed the back of his calves. It was the cream of the crop. Usually you get him with 1 or 2, but he hit him with a 40.
That was another thing. our school system was just so like retaliatory. Like if we misused anything, it was just like gone, fucking gone. Like we had milk with caps, like little plastic bottles, and we would spin the caps at each other or like flick through each other. So they got cartons. Like by the time we lost recess in like 7th grade, we didn't have any games to play at recess. Because, like, pickleball was banned because people got pegged. Wall ball was banned because people got pegged. Like, everything was just, like, banned.
Dodgeball.
Nope.
Gone.
Dude, did your school ever go through a wasp phase?
Oh, the paper wasps?
Yeah.
Oh, wasps all
we militarized them. People put tacks in them and paper clips. People, like, tried to hone them to, like, duct tape on the tips to make them hurt more. And
Oh, my God.
It got so fucked up.
I was in graphics, dude. We had a surplus of paper in that shop.
Imagine being in like an engineering studio. Make some crazy ones.
Dude, we used to
3D print them or something.
Dude, you could.
You so could.
We used to make these huge paper airplanes out of the giant poster board or like reams of cardstock paper we had in the back. My friend Max and I, we actually laid it out on a cut board and like measured out and folded the biggest paper airplane I'd ever seen. And we, in the passing period, we just walked into the hallway, like turned around the corner, flooded with students and teachers, and just like gave it a good toss in the hallway. Dude, that thing was slow, but it didn't stop. It had so much momentum, and it just
that was so sick.
Cruised through the hallway. It just hit some kid in the back of the head. We made like 3 or 4 of them, and we put my teacher's name on the wing. We was like Peterson Airlines. We just like hugged in the hallway.
Like his picture.
Oh fuck. Good
My
times.
favorite trend that we ever did was the dart game. Did you guys ever play that? Like,
No.
It was like, so you know, like you make eye contact, you do that, you can punch them. If you make eye contact and I like and blew a dart, you have to drop wherever you are, like you died, and somebody has to come over and pull the dart out. And kids played it so hardcore that like kids got suspended. Like people would drop in the cafeteria, and kids thought they were like the teachers thought they were having like a heart attack or something because they wouldn't respond. Like part of the game was you couldn't talk, you couldn't like, and obviously most people did, but some kids just took it ridiculously seriously, like people do. And like, the extremes it was taken to were so good. Kids got concussions.
Dude, think about what is that zombie thing they do here?
Oh, like
zombies versus humans or something.
Yeah.
I've always been kind of intrigued by that, but never enough to actually do it.
Some kid almost shot at me once because I guess the key for a zombie, the way they identify you as a zombie and playing the game, is you're wearing a bandana.
Yeah, and
when I had my long hair, I wore a bandana like all the time, and I was longboarding through campus, and this kid turned around when he heard my longboard, and the look in his eyes was that like enemy tango was coming up behind him, and he like swung his gun around and got. I was like, whoa, dude, like civilian casualty over here. He was like, oh, sorry, man, thought you were a zombie. I was like, definitely not. Cool.
You gotta get a shirt like not a zombie.
I just don't wear the bandana.
That would be the most genius disguise.
I should have, in hindsight, just let him shoot me and then just like drop to the ground and be like, why would you do that?
Those are the things that like I wish were not just relegated to college campuses, because like that shit's fun.
Whoa.
Like if you want to just like do that, or like the snowball fights that people organize, like it's just fucking fun. Like getting a whole group of people. Obviously, a college is easy because it's like fucking 13,000 people that are all 19 to 23. Like, sure, we'll do some stupid shit because we're all doing it, like most people will. But those community things like the zombies or
Crips and Bloods.
Yeah, that's a fun.
See, it was my understanding that you weren't allowed to walk around this college campus with a Nerf gun for the longest time. I had thought that would like get you tackled by BSU PD, but then I realized it was a thing.
Yeah,
so
like LARP. LARP is fucking cool. I wish I could LARP, but that's just not my capacity. Like, dude, that must be so fun. Like,
are we talking about North Korea or is that...
Dude, let's hit it quick. The Defector.
The Defector. I think that is really sick. That's it.
I read on Reddit that this guy said, what if it set off a chain reaction of people defecting because they didn't want to be the one to get caught? And then all of them just run across the border.
That'll be the day. Like, honestly, like,
that's how
dude did it,
fall.
and it was ridiculously brave. And then next time, 2 people will go. And then and, like, they're still gonna get fucking shot at. Like, it's not to romanticize it, but, like...
If everybody ran out of there, though,
dude,
yeah, that's...
problem solved, dude.
Did you know that...
Those crazy iconic moments, like the Tiananmen Square, like...
Yeah, dude.
That'd be crazy. I heard that every single guard that was working at that border post had been removed, and they replaced them all with new North Korean guards.
Yep, and they just didn't say where they put them.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
What do you think happens to those guys? What, dude? That's insane.
It's
if I were
horrifying.
those guys,
have you seen the the drawings that people bring out, like defectors draw, like their conditions in the camps and stuff? It's horrifying.
It's literally like a large-scale concentration camp
It
in
is,
the world,
it is.
and
Like,
we just let it
an
happen.
Active Holocaust, and we turned it into a meme. Like, because it's a chubby fat guy leading it. We're like, oh, just silly North Korea, but like, it is a horrifying. Like, what's happening there is,
yeah, and that defector, everyone in his family is now dead, or everyone in his family is now in a camp. All of his immediate family, or I think it's 3 generations. So all of his immediate generation, and then the one above him and below him, are all being punished right now for him defecting. His parents, his children.
Have you read about what happens to North Korean Olympians? Like,
no.
If you get a gold medal, you get a refrigerator.
Whoa.
If you get a silver, you get like some other compensation. Bronze, congrats, you live. And if you don't medal, which North Koreans never do because it's the Olympics, and obviously like that society can't really train sports, they're just sent to labor camps, which is a really pleasant way of saying executed, or just in a sense executed.
Yeah, like, thanks for failing our country.
Yeah, exactly. So
dude,
actually most North Korean Olympians, when they get to the games, just immediately declare as refugees. They're just like, all right, well, we're not gonna compete in the games. We ask for embassy, please, because if we go back, we'll die. And it's usually granted, because why wouldn't it be?
That's intense, man.
Yeah, it's wild.
Dude, what a
It's
way
a crazy
to live,
world
dude.
we live
You live
in.
for the sport, and then you're just skilled for it.
I mean, hey, that's how it used to be. Gladiators, right back to it.
Dude, I thought it was intense that he said you can't imagine how bad it is over there. And he was full of worms. He was malnourished, dehydrated.
He had hepatitis, what was it, B or C?
C, I think.
Yeah, I believe so. I want to find an article that I found it was somebody compiled drawings that they made over a series of years of the conditions that and like it quantifies it in some way, but like it still doesn't, because they're hand drawn, they're stick figures. Like you can't possibly empathize with what it is, but it gives you a greater understanding of what happened. I think that's the issue with genocide is those look like it. Yep. Oh. Yep, just horrible stuff.
I love how
the cameras, like we could be looking at like
cartoony figures, but they still included a size like 60 centimeters.
Wait, can you enlarge it a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just double tap. Yeah. Whoa. That's crazy.
It's really harrowing. Like there's hundreds of photographs. Well, not photographs, but compositions, I guess.
This looks like Gary Larson.
And if you think these are just the things that are preserved,
they make them stand on one leg.
Dude, you do fine there.
Just like 3 days.
Like,
go back.
He won't
go
stop.
Home.
Oh fuck! There's like mice.
Yeah, it's harrowing shit.
Holy shit! Pregnancy is prohibited within the camp, and if a woman is found pregnant, the wards will cut open the woman, throw the fetus away, and execute her.
Holy shit!
Yep. Just like inconceivable amounts of suffering. And because we don't deal with it on a militaristic level or diplomatic level, we're...
Look at that, dude. Look at those faces.
Dude, how do you do it? Do you just execute them and move in, or what do you do?
I'm not the man to make that decision by any means.
I am. We gotta kill him.
Honestly, I believe the regime has to be toppled, whether they want to do that peacefully. Because, like, rationally, they have to understand. Like, Kim Jong-un understands that if he goes to war with the United States, it's over. In some capacity. Like, they're already suffering with famine, so it's kind of like he's in the...
His people are ready to turn on him.
He's in his final moves of game theory, kind of. You know, like, he only has his, like... he's backed into a corner, sort of, because the people are unhappy. Yeah, there's been so many famines.
Do you think we will see the fall of North Korea?
I don't know. Like, I really don't know. I hope so. It's horrible. It's probably the worst government in operation today.
Who do you think will receive that land?
I mean, ideally a diplomatic North Korean society or a unified Korean society. The dream has always been to unify the Korean peninsula. Like, North Korea believes they're the one true Korea, but South Korea also believes that. And really, like, it used to be Korea, before the communists.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's really, that's up to them. It's not our decision to make. That's the issue I think Americans make.
It's Russia's decision
often.
to make.
It's unfortunately Russia and China's decision.
Yeah, Russia and China are probably going to end up taking that shit.
Yeah, China's their big brother, basically. But
it's China. Yeah, I was wondering if it was China or Russia.
Well, it's an American general's fault that all of it happened in the first place.
Really?
Because I believe it was MacArthur, and he and who was the president during the Korean War? Was it Truman still?
I couldn't tell you, my friend.
Okay, I believe it to be Truman. He and the president had a rivalry and a disagreement just as men. Like, they did not see eye to eye. And the president understood that if you crossed a certain parallel, because he had diplomatically reached out to the Chinese, and he was saying, like, we are fighting the communist forces here. We understand you're a communist force. We're not fighting you. We want to eradicate a violent force that's attacking the South Koreans. And if they agreed on a certain parallel, and if the troops passed that parallel, then the Chinese would obviously act because it was their border. So they approached, I believe it's the Yellow River, and I don't want to claim it to be the Yellow River because it could not be. But they approached that border, and MacArthur was just like, we're going to march on because we're going to just eradicate all of the North Koreans. And China took it as a sign of aggression, and China supported the North Koreans, and it spread us back into war for another, I think, 4 or 5 years before we withdrew. Yeah. So it was just one man's hubris that affected world history.
Wow.
And that happens so often. One
Genghis Khan.
Yeah. Isn't it like 1/3 of people on the continent of Asia can trace their lineage to Genghis Khan?
Yeah.
That's 1/3, 33% of the most populous continent on the world.
Did he succeed? Was
he won.
Genghis Khan a success?
And the funniest thing about Genghis Khan,
yes,
he lived so violently and so brutally, and he died of a nosebleed on his wedding night.
Oh my god.
He died
Jesus.
of a hemorrhage from his nosebleed. Like, this man killed literal, populations.
Wow.
Nosebleed.
Probably
good for him.
Too much McDonald's on the road.
Yeah, too much roast goat.
Out with a whimper.
Just
yes.
crazy. Yeah, you don't get to decide that portion of your legacy. It's fascinating because men in power always fixate on legacy, I feel, or generally fixate on legacy. So it's fascinating when it's ripped from them. And I think he was probably in a more primal state, so it was less about legacy. But in modern politics, legacy is definitely a motivating factor, I think.
Do you guys think that... I'm sorry.
No, you go.
Do you guys think that trying to plan your life after... Not your life, but what happens after you die and living for that legacy, do you think that's a selfish, egotistical thing, or do you think that's natural? And that's progression.
Can't it be both?
Yeah, it can.
It can be very natural and very egotistical. I honestly kind of believe it's a combination of the two, personally.
Yeah. It's just the ego striving for
right,
self. It's I'm body. I want more for this body.
Yeah, I think on a biological level, it's if I have a lot of kids, then my genetics will live on, and it's it's a primal thing.
Dude, when you think about it, though, it's you can trace your lineage directly back to the start of mankind. And it's if you don't have a kid, it just ends.
Yeah, that's wild. That's really wild.
Deep.
I
think that's a good place to end off.
I think so.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
The pleasure was all ours.
Thank you, Colin.
It's been a great week.
It's been a great weekend, dude. Dude, thank you for everything, my dude. Good podcast.
Good. Peace out, my dude. Episode 10.
Episode 10.
Peace out, people.
In the books.
Best flows to test on my next shows while my whiteboard is marked up with expos. Planning out all of my next next moves are exposed. The most unlikely artist to make it out of the West Coast. Teenager with the mind of a vet though, but soon somebody will sign him a check. So if you did something that you highly regret, I recommend it, it's about time that you let go. Cause at first they were trying to diss me, now I'm coming up so they ask for favors. And when you get noticed, the story flips. See, now they talking to me on their best behavior. People I barely know telling me they love me. Two-faced friends only in it for the money. Who can you trust when he trying to be the greatest? But now I'm waving bye to you haters until I'm number one is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. Yeah, but the number one is what I'm going for. I used to want it all, and now I want it more. Until I'm number one is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. And you could tell that I mean it if you look into my eyes. It shouldn't be a surprise when I finally arrive at the top, number one. What am I really trying to prove? Did I just put myself into a situation where I gotta choose between music and money, fans and friends? I hope that all the above is on the Scantron then. Life is a test and I study for the class. If you wanna understand, then you better do the math. Procrastinated rappers thinking they go past, gonna find out real soon just how long they gonna last. Can't afford to keep it 100 nowadays, cause if you want the money and need the record plays, you'll turn into a Lady Gaga monster for the fame. That's why all of a sudden all your music sounds the same. But me, I'll keep it me, have nobody else to blame. Cause even if I never ever make it in the game, I'll know I kept it true when I gave my all to you. But nah, fuck it, I ain't in it to lose, I wanna be number one is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. Yeah, but the number one is what I'm going for. I used to want it all, and now I want it more. Until I'm number one is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. And you could tell that I mean it if you look into my eyes. It shouldn't be a surprise when I finally arrive at the top, number one. I spent my last 2 summers surrounded by blue walls and people doing covers. YouTube stars seem to come in a flash, but when lightning strike, I'ma come later with the thunder and let it resonate across the town. With my voice in a sound, let it shake the ground. From the 415s in the trunk, let it pound to the bay. You know I'ma hold it down. Cause when I'm number one, I'ma take it to the top. This life is too much fun, I ain't never gonna stop. They don't wanna see me run, they just wanna see me flop. But it's gonna be a different story when they hear it drop. Cause when I'm number one, I'ma take it to the top. This life is too much fun, I ain't never gonna stop. They don't wanna see me run, they just wanna see me flop. But it's gonna be a different story when they hear me drop. I wanna be number one is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. Yeah, but the number one is what I'm going for. I used to want it all, and now I want it more. Until I'm number one is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. And you could tell that I mean it if you look into my eyes. It shouldn't be a surprise when I finally arrive at the top, number one is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. Two can be as bad as one. It's the loneliest number, this is the number one.